Call to order this meeting of the Wendell Town Board of Commissioners. Thank y'all for being here with us. Hopefully this is the last time we're going to be meeting here. We appreciate the use of the space, but we're ready to get back to our own place. So, that being said, let's have the Pledge of Allegiance led by
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our invitation tonight is going to be from the Wendell Christian Church, Elder Mike Harrison. Thank you for being here with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and the commissioners, and all the guests. Please join me in prayer. Gracious God, with grateful hearts we come to lift up praise and thanksgiving for the many blessings provided for each of us and for our town, and for the opportunity to share these blessings with those less fortunate. While there are many gifts we have received, they all have the same spirit. You have called us to be humble, loving, and caring of each other, and good stewards of the responsibilities entrusted to us. We are grateful for our town and challenge both leaders and citizens to preserve its future by consistent accountability and rejoicing always in what's right, never in anything that is wrong. Help us to bear all things and endure whatever we must, to trust in all circumstances and be hopeful in all trials. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, I have an adjustment to the agenda. I'd like to add an item 8A, appointments of the clerk and deputy clerk pursuant to Article 5 of the town charter, please.
So we're going to have an item 8A after the budget request. Do we have to vote on that? Okay, that's in the form of a motion.
Yes.
All in favor of adding item number 8A to the agenda?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you. And approval of the agenda, the rest of it. Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
There's no one signed up for public comment period tonight. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 3, citizen board update by the Economic Development Committee. Good evening, Mr. White. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Yes, ma'am. When you spoiled it, I'm supposed to say you know me, but for the record, I'm Paul White. Chairman of the committee.
I don't want to steal your thunder. A little bit of update, because you got some commissioners that weren't here when this was formed. I was requested to be here and give a report on some of the things that have gone on since we were formed. The Economic Development Committee was established in 2013 to further economic development of the town of Wendell and promote job creation and business support opportunities in the area. The EDC was comprised of 8 voting members and 1 non-voting representative of the Wendell Chamber of Commerce. The committee meets on the 4th Wednesday of most months with potential special call meetings in November and December. Originally, we had 2 different boards and we consolidated into one. We had one that dealt with out of town and one downtown. Kind of be more efficient if we were meeting separate there. So we now meet as a group and meet once a month. Our members, we have 3 members, long-time members that are going off. They just had their last meeting. Don Brown is an engineer, Lisa McKenzie, stock investor, and Barry Perry. They just went off. And The members now are myself, Ed Morrell, Sherry Hedrick, Dr. Connie Jones, veterinarian and youth vet. Stacy Peace, I believe I pronounced that right. She has a new business downtown, a clothing store that's just opened. And Gene Bradley, and he and a group have bought the Ideal Cleaners building. They want to put business in that. And Nikki Jones, and she's somebody that needs to Wendell that wants to be involved, and she was at our meeting. We have one remaining vacant seat. We're looking for somebody to join us on. We do not have an appointment from the Chamber of Commerce yet. We're going to get one. Brad Reinhardt has been involved, and he is becoming the chamber president. And he attends most of our meetings, so we're going to consider him like a member to appoint somebody. One of our primary reasons for existing was to work with property owners to create a certified site. We have not been able to do that. We have several locations that we're working on, but we don't have a certified site at this point. I would like to go over some of the things that have been accomplished or worked on since we were created. We put forth and added to the UDO an indoor shooting range with the idea. We don't have it, but we fixed it where if somebody wanted to come to town and we had the building, we could put one in, thinking that with Perry's there and the gun repair shop, that it would be a tremendous draw. And we do have a building that I would put forth to use for somebody to come do it. Micro distillery, winery, brewery was added to the UDO, and we now have a distillery downtown. Wayfinding signs, plan review, 2 wayfinding signs have been erected. Development of the Wendell Small and Large Business Incentive Policies, coordinated meetings with Carolina Realty and Wendell Town Board, and work after that on having downtown Wi-Fi and town parking improvements. And we're doing fiber research. Vacant store front window displays. When our lady on the county park came up with that and we took pictures, she did, blew them up and we placed them around town in store windows for our history. The Wendell brochure, we reviewed and helped develop it, and it's now been out. We did a acreage thing that shows, you've got Wendell Falls, got this way, and we put together an acreage on this side of town, something like 1,000 acres. It really incorporated on there, we probably had 12 property owners, most of it was 5 property owners, again, trying to put something together in the future to draw something else like Wendell Falls. Town of Wendell website, redesigned and reviewed by us. Downtown parking lot. This was developed, we hadn't distributed it, because right now we don't really have a parking problem. We may have later, we've got it ready, we need to. Ideas to get property, people that are running business to try not to park on Main Street. But we don't have enough of a problem yet to do that. Ed Morrell came up with the idea of a retail recruitment lab. This is something we've done recently. It's been written up and it's been distributed. We used to have a cleaners. Wendell didn't have a cleaners. That was one of the things we went after. But we had a list of businesses that the love had been sent to. Tell them we welcome you to Wendell and not going to make contact. What will happen is you don't. How many call for this? You don't ask, you don't give it to sale, so that's what we try. Development of vacant storefront inventory, reviewed and helped develop the town's electronic message board use policy, coordinated the downtown open house as part of Evening with Sound. At the, we did an outdoor dining policy where y'all passed it, where you can have, if you go by Wine 101, and we used to, when we went downtown, if it was at 5 o'clock, there was nothing going on. Now you got people sitting on the sidewalk, having a glass of wine, eating something. We're hoping somebody that buys the tap room will continue that. Having those tables sitting on the sidewalk, people sitting in them, that's above the billboard. It says that we're open for business. We work with Wendell Falls and the people on the 250 acres. We've had meetings in the past and we just had some more. We keep trying to put something together. We don't have a certified site, but the idea is to put something together so we would have something like that, a certified site. Wendell Falls has property that joins the 250 acres, and we've had several meetings with the property owners trying to get them to come together. But if you've got 1 or 2 people, that gets to be a job that we're working on. The last meeting, I'm gonna read you a couple of things from the meeting. Mrs. Hedrick suggested that the EDC host a reception where they encourage businesses to come and air out concerns and to explain what the EDC is. Mrs. Rice said that business owners should be invited face to face. In other words, you can't just send an invitation, nobody shows up. Mr. Reinhardt suggested that the chamber and EDC meet to coordinate, so we have this, we're going to use their membership, but we want to go to others also. The idea would be to have the chamber has businesses that have a get name to line out, we can go, everybody meets. Dr. Conner suggested we ask Food Line and other businesses to donate food and supplies. Mr. Reinhardt noted that Bravo's donated pizzas to the chamber tournament. Mrs. Hedrick said that donated food would be a good way for businesses to display their products. Mr. White and Mrs. Hedrick suggested they give people 1 or 2 free drink tickets to get them to come. We approached Wine 101 as a site to have it, and we're planning on a 6 to 9 event, September 22nd. I think that's on a Thursday, and we'll be at Wine 101. And we're going to have food. And so you can be proud of your members. We're trying to figure out how we're going to pay for it. And just about everybody on the board, we're going to pick it up. We got $350 in cash. So there's people out here, we're going to have tickets. Wine 101 agreed not only to have it, but to discount the ticket to us. Our theory is we give 1 ticket for a glass of wine and then everybody on after that if we bought it. And they were already net with them and they didn't want us to have them. So that has been planned. And I was particularly interested that everybody, just about everybody in the group, there was some money through the mail. So, any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Mr. White?
I hope that the board will see fit to join us that night. And that we'll still put it together.
Thank y'all for your hard work, Mr. White. Y'all don't realize, I attend these meetings. I didn't do this last time because I had a budget meeting, but this group of folks, they really do a lot of brainstorming and they do a lot of stuff that's behind the scenes that you don't, it's kind of thankless, but you get to see the benefits of it around town and you may not even realize that they've done that, so I appreciate your hard work.
I want to mention too, and this is separate of that, but I've been hearing ever since I was involved with ABC, when are we going to get an ABC store? And I can tell you there's a good chance we're going to have something by next summer.
That'd be great, thank you.
They're aware of that. I hear that.
Thank you. All right, item number 4, amendment to the facade grant program.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the board. At the July 22nd, 2013 Board of Commissioners meeting, the board approved an updated downtown facade grant program to simplify the application and review process, clarify eligible improvements, and increase the number of application cycles per year. Since December 2012, the board has approved 15 facade grant applications, with money being dispersed to 12 of those grants. Staff has reviewed the program and found that property owners are overall pleased with the program. The main critique of the grant is the amount of time it can take from an application being submitted to the time that money is actually dispersed once the project is complete. Second critique is that new business owners are not eligible for a grant if a previous business owner was awarded a grant for that same property. As the program currently stands, there are 4 application deadlines, which fall on the last day of March, June, September, and December. In the current process, an applicant could potentially submit an application on January 1st, being the first day of a new cycle, and have to wait until the end of March for the application deadline to pass, and then have that application reviewed by the Appearance Commission on April 4th for their recommendation and board action on April 11th. So that creates up to a 14-week waiting period from submittal to final approval. Staff requests that the board consider keeping the 4 application cycles per year, but changing it to more of a first-come, first-served policy. That way it will help speed up the review process. Under this change, it would be more of a 6-week cycle instead of a 14-week wait period. The second consideration requested by staff is to allow for new businesses to be eligible for a facade grant, even if their prior business received a grant at the same location. Currently, the program requires a property to wait 3 years before being eligible for another grant. In the past, we've had business owners that were awarded a grant, close the business for any reason, and then a new business owner came in and couldn't be eligible to apply for a grant. If a new business is willing to make the investment in the facade of the building, we believe that the business owner should be allowed to apply for a grant. Priority would still be given to property owners that had not received a grant when competing with properties that would fall into this new category. Staff proposes a seventh decision factor for grant approval be added for grants previously awarded to the property for consideration by the Appearance Commission and Board of Commissioners. Staff finds that the requested amendment would be more business friendly and encourage potential applicants to quickly apply for a grant when the cycle opens. Change would also allow for new businesses to make additional improvements to commercial buildings, even if previous owners were awarded a grant in the past 3 years. Based on these findings, staff requests that the board approve the recommendation for the facade grant program.
Does anyone have any questions from the committee about the facade grant changes? So the effect of this is that the applicants are going to be submitting their applications more at the beginning of the time than the end.
Yes,
So we want to push them to rush to apply at the beginning instead of rush to apply at the end,
correct.
so that things can happen a little faster.
Yes.
I understand. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the amendment to the downtown facade grant program.
Any discussion on the motion? Approve changes to the facade grant program? All right, all in favor? All opposed? All right, thank you very much. Number 5, ordinance for unmanned aircraft.
Madam Mayor, members of the board is asked to review and discuss an ordinance to allow the launch and recovery of an unmanned aerial system on town property. Eastway TV has purchased what we call a UAS. It's a Phantom 4 for the purpose of filming activities with Eastway TV's partner communities. In order to do so, the town of Wendell would need to provide permission for Eastway TV. And looking at that is determining whether or not we also need to have an ordinance in place that regulates the flying of such unmanned vehicles. And because Eastway TV is a public entity and receives public funds, again, they are not like a hobbyist that has much more freedom, and so they would have to get permission from the town. And that would be to launch as well as recover. That is something that we certainly can do. Our attorney is continuing to look at the ordinance itself. What we would like to do is take any questions that you may have this evening. We're not looking at this time to actually approve the ordinance, but there may be questions that you have. But we would like to go ahead and give Eastway TV the authority to fly, especially in the event that we can talk Gary to coming out on July 4th with our parade and our events that we have in the area, to be a great opportunity to use that if at all possible. If the ordinance is not adopted again, we just would like to let them know that it is okay with the town if they have their other permits and everything in place for them to fly. But what we'd like to do at this time is to take any questions that you might have on the ordinance and take those back as our attorney continues his review.
Any questions for Ms. Connor?
Have they flown these things before?
They have, actually, we have flown inside of the community center. And those are the types of things, and it's, if you notice, it's not outside on the property as we're waiting for them to receive additional permits. They also did, I believe, in the Clayton Center, they did a fly-in there as well. So we're excited about what this could do for economic, when you're talking about economic development and marketing, we think that we can do a lot with this once we have all the permits in place and we can give them permission to fly outside.
So they would have to get a permit in order to fly these drones.
Mhm.
I'd like to just make sure we cover with our attorney who the liability falls on in the event those things come crashing down or whatever the case may be. We were talking earlier about one that had crashed, so I'd hate for it to fall and hit a kid or something and us be on the hook for it. So.
Okay.
My request to the attorney would be what needs, obviously you have a very specific what you're trying to achieve here. Let's try to achieve that goal. the bottom line of the whereas says is desirable and in public interest. And then the beginning of the section A says, is prohibited to all on town property without specific permission written by the town manager. Kind of seems conflicting to me. If we need to grant some sort of permission for East Wake TV, I am absolutely all for that. But I think writing an entire ordinance just to grant that permission may end up with some unintended consequences, just with town properties being in different places. You know, Mr. White, for instance, if he wanted to film a TV commercial, if that drone nips out into over the street or over a property, I think we can use common sense here. But just ask him what we need to do to get East Wake TV the ability to do it and not hamper anyone else in the process.
This ordinance was written by the town attorney for Garner, and as far as we can tell, we asked him to, we actually asked all 7 of our partner towns, do you want to do an ordinance? Garner was the first one to do it. It was written by their town attorney. And specifically what their ordinance does, which is what you're looking at, is prohibit everyone else from flying drones on the town property other than us. And we only need permission from the town manager. Our personal rules of our operation is that we need to tell the manager when we're coming anyway. And so that's not really a restriction for us. We're going to call the manager and say, we're going to be there on 4th of July or whatever it is. And we've got a pilot, and he's going through the process to get his FAA license to fly a drone. There's more restriction on us than there is for a 14-year-old kid that goes to Best Buy and buys the same drone. We don't, the FAA rules, you can't fly more than 400 feet, you can't fly over crowds. So if we do the 4th of July, which I'm not sure we can yet, but if we do, we have to be offset so that if it does crash, it's going to fall on a building or on the street down the road, not on people standing and watching. These things can be dangerous. I mean, the Phantom 4, which is our second one, by the way, it will cut your fingers off.
To achieve what you're trying to achieve, though, do you need the prohibition on everyone else?
No. It's just Garner decided they didn't want anyone else flying out of the park. And so that was the recommendation of the police department. And so that's what they did. All I need is permission to fly from the property. The state law essentially has 2 things. One, it says everyone in North Carolina has to have permission of the property owner to take off and land. So you're the property owner. The other is it says cities and counties can adopt an ordinance if they so choose. And so there's 2 different issues there. So Garner decided they wanted to restrict everyone else but let us fly.
How much insurance do you have on?
We have, I think, $500,000. We're pretty well covered. We take all that seriously, and we've been training. We're getting all the licenses and regulations, meeting all the regulations that we need to meet this time around.
Ms. Pine. This ordinance, does it only prohibit the launching and recovery from town property, or would it prevent a citizen from launching and recovering on private property but overflying town property?
Our ordinance talks about launching and recovering from town property. I don't think we have anything in place that prohibits it from flying.
So if they
over.
went across the street, they could launch it at somebody's yard and still go over the same event?
That's correct.
Okay.
And again, as Mr. McConkey said, East Wake TV, because of its funding source, is much more restricted in what it has to go through than it would be if I was a hobbyist and picked one up and bought one. So they are going through those processes right now.
Would you all feel more comfortable if something was drafted that reflected your Wendell's hopes better? That be more to your liking?
I'd like to at least take a little bit longer look at it.
I mean, if we have one particular goal here that we're trying to allow East Wake, let's figure out what we need to do to allow East Wake, but I don't think we need to jump into passing regulation on everybody
For the time being, why don't we get a motion to grant the permission, the manager permission to give Eastway TV permission to operate it for July 4th? So we can continue to move ahead while we're doing this research.
So, man,
Okay. All right, so the motion is to give the grant permission for the manager to give permission to Eastway TV to operate the drone for the July 4th celebration on town property. All in favor?
Alright.
Great. Item number 6, vehicle decal tax ordinance amendment. Ms. Tyner.
Madam Mayor, members of the board is asked to review and take action on an ordinance to increase the vehicle decal tax from $10 to $20. In 2013, the town of Wendell voted to increase the vehicle decal tax from 5 to 10. As a result, at that time of the reevaluation and the decline in home property values since 2008, the increased demands on services due to growth and the desire to maintain a tax rate of 49 cents per 100 property valuation, it has been recommended to increase the vehicle decal tax from 10 to 20 at this time. Additional revenues from the increase are estimated at approximately $30,000. This is done in conjunction and has been reviewed as a part of our budget adoption, which we will have in the next agenda item. And we would ask if you have any questions on this, we'll be glad to try to take those and answer those for you.
Any questions on the title?
Motion to approve, the ordinance to increase the vehicle tax from $10 to $20.
Motion to increase the vehicle decal tax from $10 to $20. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Alright.
No, I am opposed.
Item number 7, action on the proposed fiscal year 2016-2017 budget for the town of Wendell. Ms. Tyner.
Madam Mayor, at the June 13th, 2016 meeting, the board chose to move action on the budget to the Monday 27th meeting, which is this evening. Due to concerns with the proposed tax rate of 51 cents, which would be 4 cents over revenue neutral, or 2 cents above the current 0.49 cent tax rate, special call meetings were held on Wednesday, June 22nd, and Thursday, June 23rd. At the Thursday, June 23rd meeting, special call meeting, staff presented a balanced budget with a reduction of $4,000 regarding the facade grant, $18,000 appropriated from the fund balance, vehicle tax increase of $10 from 10 to 20, and an estimated revenue, additional estimated revenues of a little over 40,000. The budget being presented for this evening is $5,051,335. I'd like to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Ms. Tyner?
Comments?
Comments? Great, too.
I have some comments on this budget. This budget process started many months ago, back in February. The 51 cent tax budget, the 51 cent tax rate budget that was presented, that was staff's proposal, came about in April. I know budgeting can be complicated. The most recent Eastern Wake News had 2 articles that had 2 different takes on how this affected town. One of them said that the tax rate basically went up, and the other one, or not the rate, but the valuations went up, and the other one insinuated it went down. It's a complicated matter, and I don't expect everyone to dig into it very deep, but I expect us to. And if the bottom line is that this budget, if we kept everything the same as last year, was gonna result in a budget shortfall of $92,000 over the previous year due to Wake County's reevaluation of property values. 51 cents puts that back where it needs to be. Every cent of property tax adds another 45,000, there's 90,000. And that 51-cent budget that was proposed in April, I nor staff really heard anything about it until the first whisper I heard about a problem with it was June the 2nd, and that's when Commissioner Myrick stopped by my house to talk about it. Our conversation got cut short that day, but almost all the work that's been done on this budget has been done in the past week, in the past 2 weeks, maybe, with very few outside stakeholders, very few people in the town even knowing that we, the budget that we had a public hearing on, this isn't it. This isn't the budget. This budget says that it's the same tax rate. It is the same tax rate, but it represents a loss in revenue for the town, and that's revenue that the town uses to do a lot of things. My main problem with this budget is I think it says that our town doesn't want to invest in itself. All the towns around us are investing in themselves. Garner, Roseville, Wake Forest, Clayton, all of them know that economic development in their downtowns is what drives businesses coming. Keeping the property tax rate down by 2 cents, for a couple $100 reduction in the tax bill, I don't think that makes or breaks or is a decision point for when a business comes to town or leaves. I think the health and vibrancy of a downtown is what attracts businesses. And I don't think this budget really shows that the town of Wendell is serious about economic development in town. The other problem I have with this budget is how fast it was pushed through. If we have problems with a 51-cent tax rate, we should have been working on it in April. We should have been working on it in May, not the last 2 weeks of June, when it's due by the 1st of July. I call this budget the Hakuna Matata budget. Now, I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with that term. If you're my age, you heard it directly. If you have children my age, I'm sure you heard it from your children. But Hakuna Matata is Swahili. It's from the Lion King movie. It means no worries. And the reason I call it that is because this budget doesn't worry about what happens if we get a winter storm, because we're not going to have any extra money to pay public works overtime to plow the streets. It doesn't worry what happens if we have a hurricane and we have to clean up a bunch of limbs and pay to dump those limbs. This budget doesn't worry about what happens if the economy doesn't do as well as we hope it does. I would like to point out Dow Jones has dropped almost 900 points in the past 2 days. This budget's not worried about that. There's not any breathing room built into this budget for any contingencies, in my opinion. We've put off a whole lot of expenditures that we've been needing to make, and I don't think that we're paying attention to capital expenditures we're going to have to make in the future. We have an excellent opportunity in the next few years to go in with the county for a police substation on the west side of town, which is going to be needed considering the growth over there. If we don't have the money, if we don't set aside the money for that, then that opportunity is going to pass us by, and it's going to cost us a whole lot more to build a standalone police station on the west side of town. This budget, there's absolutely no way we can put away money with a budget that has been trimmed down this much. And that's what it has been. It's been trimmed down. This isn't the same tax. This is less tax. This is a tax cut. It's a tax cut, and it's a fee raise. The vehicle decal is a fee raise. And I mean, that's a play straight out of the Jones Street playbook. No offense, Commissioner Garner. But to say that we keep the tax rate the same, but we're going to increase fees and then say it's not a tax increase, I don't think that's very disingenuous. It's very disingenuous. If we go over budget on the improvements to Town Hall, we're going to have to pull it out of fund balance, which is the savings account for the town. If we go over budget on the mayor's new office, we're gonna have to pull it out of the fund balance. I mean,
Hold on, no, just hold on. Everything in that office, I pay for myself, so just step off of that.
a lot of the reason we added more office space on that side of the building.
That was office space, not for the mayor, just office space.
I'll invite anyone to go in there and tell me whose office it is.
It's my office, I bought the stuff that's in it. You need to
Okay.
wrap it up.
I got plenty more.
Well, you know what, if you had a lot to say, you should have been at the budget meeting we had last week. It was scheduled to everyone's convenience and you weren't there.
We have a $92,000 shortfall in revenues. And how this is being made up is we're cutting $4,000 out of facade grant. That's the only spending cut that's being made. We're raising the vehicle fee by $30,000. And we're taking $18,000 out of the fund balance, which is the town's savings account. Anybody can do basic math knows that's not $92,000. And you can't balance the budget, in my opinion, by pulling money out of your savings account. You can't pay your bills out of savings unless it's a real emergency. We're not in an emergency, but this budget puts us in one. So where's the other $40,000 comes from? An increase in estimated revenues. Our budget director estimates how much tax money that we'll receive over the upcoming year. And when we were still $40,000 short, we just raised the estimate by $40,000. I don't think that's responsible. I really don't think that's responsible. And I think the real cost of this budget, it's not going to be just this year. You know, yeah, if it doesn't work out, we can raise taxes next year. That sounds great, but the perception is going to continue that Wendell just wants to stay the same. Wendell just wants to, do as little as possible. Every other town adjusted their tax rate because of the reevaluation. That's just the way it is. And that's not doing something, I'm not advocating we raise our tax rate because everybody else did. If you're outside in a lightning storm and everybody else runs in, you didn't run in because everybody else did. You did because that's what you should have done. I think $18,000 is the smallest amount of money that we'll end up having to pull out of fund balance to keep going for the entire year. And that's taxpayer money that was put aside, it was saved aside, because it's financially responsible to have some money in savings. I'm opposed to this budget, I'm opposed to how fast it was put together, and I'm opposed to how little attention it pays to economic development in this town. But I'm not worried about it. Hakuna Matata.
Madam Mayor, for a series of comments.
And yeah, I like for you, go ahead.
Mr. Kay, your projections on revenue, your confidence interval on that, you confident those are the right numbers? And that happened after a reevaluation of the numbers? Your initial numbers were found in February, so 5 months later that was a little bit different. Ms. Piner, your 51-cent budget as initially proposed to this board, can you explain to me what we will vote on tonight that is different than your initial budget with the exception of the tax rate? Am I correct in saying it is just the facade grants? That's the only piece that has been cut?
The piece that's been cut has been the facade grants,
So
that's correct.
$4,000. Okay. The police officer position still fully funded?
Yes, for the half year, it is.
Okay, as proposed. The police substation, Wake County's gonna move on that in the upcoming fiscal year, but doesn't have any priority for us to put funding in it until the following fiscal year, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the total deficit was $92,000?
Just a little over that, yes, sir.
And without the local concern, or without the recent developments with paying ourselves back off paving the streets, the estimated spot for our fund balance, 1.7 million?
Yes, sir.
So even if we funded the entire budget gap out of the fund balance, that would not drop us below 1.6 million. 1.5 million. Correct. And I think it's the majority of you, but those of you who weren't at the last two work sessions, as a constant observer of government, what I will say is a lot of times it takes government to be pushed to the end to get to work. What I will say is, out of a courtesy to Commissioner Boyette, at our last full schedule meeting, I delayed the vote so that he could have a vote. And I think that the product of that was we continued working on the budget. I think tonight, as Ms. Piner said, you were getting a 51-cent budget for 49-cent of a tax rate, plus your $18,000. The concept that the only way that the public is not harmed is by raising the tax rate is incorrect. That is a recurring rate that everyone will pay forever, or until someone decides we're going to cut that rate. My initial proposal was to go into the fund balance completely. I don't know everyone's personal finances. I know mine. When something comes up, I save for it and I put it in savings. I don't put it in savings because I'm never going to touch it. I put it there because eventually I will have to pay for it. Today, for instance, Triangle Import got a good bit of my savings, and that's the cost of doing business. To say that we're not investing in ourselves because we're not raising taxes on property owners in this city is far-fetched to me. Every dime that is in that fund balance is taxpayer money. It was raised with taxpayer money, and it sits there with taxpayer money. It is not the business of government to sit on taxpayer money and never use it because, oh, we have a piggy bank and we don't want to use that, and we're just going to raise the rate on you. You know, if we had to come back 6 months from now or a year from now and say we got to raise the tax rate because we tried to use the piggy bank, we tried to tighten our belt, and it's not working, then I'm fine with that. But at the current date, I'm not. And with that, I'll give it to you, Madam Mayor.
I just had a couple of comments I wanted to make. I think to characterize that all of the work on the budget has been done in the last week is unfair and just very inaccurate. The folks downtown have been working on the budget for months. We've talked about it for months. We continue to acquire information that adjusts it right up until recently. And I think we would be remiss not to continue to accept that information and learn from it and make decisions based on it. We absolutely are investing in ourselves. There's been a tremendous amount of that has started happening over the last few years, and we're continuing to do that. One thing that I will mention that I think that everybody needs to think about too is that in Wendell, the tax rate is 49, but we also have to add the fire tax, which I believe is 9.6. Am I correct? That's what it's saying. So that puts Wendell at 57.6, which is still above Zebulon by 1/10 of a point, which is still the highest tax rate in Wake County. I think having that information means that we need to work harder to not raise it. I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologize for the fact that I don't want to raise taxes in the most taxed place in the county. That's just how I feel about it. I don't, you know, I just shake my head about that. As far as hurricane cleanup, snow cleanup, and so forth, do you feel like we're adequately prepared for should one of those things take place? Ms. Piner?
Those items have not been budgeted for. Over and beyond, we do have some stockpile of salt and that sort of thing, but if it was a major event, it would be necessary for us to go into fund balance to be able to pay for those.
Okay, thank you. And the fire station, it's my understanding, we discussed this last week, that it was going to be at least 2018 before the county was going to start.
The 2016-17, this summer, they are looking at purchasing the land. 17-18, they will be going into design, and 18-19, they will be looking at actually construction.
Okay, one other thing that I want to address since we brought it up. You know, yes, the mayor of Wendell has an office in the town hall now. So now we're, you know, for a long, long time, Wendell was the only town in Wake County that didn't have that. There was an office space. I spent my own money and completely furnished it. The only thing that's in it that I did not buy is there's a telephone in there that's covered in dust that I think came out of a storage closet somewhere. So I'm not going to apologize for that. I think it's nice. I've already had several meetings in there. It's not quite finished yet. Got a few more things I need to pick up. But I mean, you know, I think that my goal has been, while I've been on the town board and now that I'm the mayor, that Wendell needs to up his game a little bit. And the fact that I don't even have a place to talk to people when they want to talk to me is just not good enough. And frankly, if I was willing to pay for it myself, you know, you're welcome. So I paid for it myself. So, and I'm not sure why Mr. Boyette was even in there, frankly. That's all for now. I'll probably have some more later. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say?
Madam Mayor, I just want to say one thing because I don't think it was addressed, but the $18,000 that came from the fund balance or our savings account, to my understanding, it was two items and they were one-time, it was a one-time thing. So it wasn't like we were going in the fund balance to pay for something that was reoccurring. It was just two items. Once they pay for this year, they won't come up in next year's budget.
Madam Mayor, for a motion.
Yes, go ahead.
Move that we do pass the proposed 16-17 budget to the town of Wendell.
I have a motion to pass, approve the 15-16 submitted budget for the town of Wendell. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
No,
No, Mr. Boyette wants to raise taxes.
the only one who voted at this meeting not to, though.
Item number 8. Budget ordinance amendment for fiscal year 2015-2016.
Madam Mayor, members of the board, the staff requests the Board of Commissioners approve the budget ordinance amendment for 2015-16 budget to approve the job descriptions and to approve the job descriptions for the special assistant manager and human resource specialist, as well as, we've added, it'll be 8A.
Yeah, that's why I didn't say it, I'm sorry.
No, you're correct, you're correct. And that 8 is just kind of a cleanup. We have to do this at the end of each year so that we can balance things and clean things up to where and how we've been operating. And so we are looking at the budget that you have, the budget summary that the finance director has put together for you to review, as well as, again, attachment B is with the job descriptions, and we need to make sure that we clean those up to reflect what the job duties actually are. And with those job descriptions, a lot of times if it's something minor or in nature, then the manager can do that. I feel that these are changes and big enough that we need to have the board to authorize those and approve those. The reason they weren't done originally is because as we worked through it, we wanted to make sure what those duties would be. Sometimes we think we know, and then as things transition and change, and it was better for us to work through that process. But as we've done that this year, now is what we call cleanup time from the perspective of the budget as well as for the job descriptions. What I would say is on the budget, departments have remained within their budgets, within their line items, car repairs, those types of things, and we had to shift things around within those budgets, within that departmental budget. And I'll be glad to try to answer any questions that you may have. Again, finance director is here and be able to answer those as well.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Piner? We need a motion to approve the budget ordinance amendment for fiscal year 2015.
Motion to approve the budget ordinance amendment for fiscal year 2015-16.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right, 8B. Ms. Carter?
Yes, ma'am. Those job descriptions are, those will be special assistant to the manager. Again, it's something that we've been working on since, shortly after the adoption of the budget last year, trying to put that into place, as well as, the human resource specialist. We have moved Malia Edwards, who has been in the finance department for some time, taking on more of those human resource roles and be able to grow her in that position as we grow with our staff and our needs. And so we would ask that the board approve those job descriptions that you have in 8B.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Carter? Need a motion to approve the job descriptions for the special assistant to the manager and human resource specialist.
So moved.
All in favor? Item number 9. Update on board committee, town board members. It says no meetings were scheduled for this agenda, but I had Campo, June 15th.
Mayor, the 8A with the clerk and the deputy clerk,
Can we just approve?
that was the job descriptions. This was actually the board approving or confirming the appointments that we have.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that we have 2 sections in our charter, and they are somewhat conflicting, and to make sure we're on the right track, I did talk to the attorney. One section says that the clerk is to be appointed by the town manager, the other section says by the board of commissioners. At this time, Sherry Scoggins has been appointed and sworn in as the clerk, which we are mandated by state statute to have, as well as I have been sworn in as deputy clerk, and we need the board to either approve those appointments to make sure that we're clear and cleaned up there, or to appoint someone else as clerk.
I'm sorry, you told me that when I came in, and I passed that along to Mr. Luce, so. And I gave him the paper and everything, so. You have it, you make a motion
Oh, sorry.
to approve the appointment.
Yeah, motion to approve the appointments of clerk and deputy clerk pursuant to Article 5 of the town charter.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Now number 9. I attended Campo on June 15th. We discussed the 2016 LAP funding update, 2018 LAP funding program changes that are going to take place. There was an update on safe routes to school, an update on North Carolina DOT non-motorized data program, which means bicycles and pedestrians. The Wake County Transit Plan update, and they updated us on their budget figures at this time. So that was all on that. Item number 10, reports from commissioners. We'll start with Mr. Carroll.
Well, I would just like to say thank you for everybody coming to the meeting and being involved and interested in the budget. If you missed the 2 work sessions we had, or any of the meetings leading up to this meeting in reference to the budget, you missed some good talk. There was a lot of pencil sharpening and uncomfortable conversation with different views, and the results of that was everybody coming together, trying to work together the best we could to present a budget that was friendly to the citizen of Wendell. I think Commissioner Joyner said twice now, with a $1.7 million general fund, it had been presented that we dip into it for the whole 90. Being of a business mind, I consider this calculated risk and foresight for the future development of town, and it is a risk. We did take a risk. But I think it will pay off, and I think we came to a good compromise coming to 18,000 out of the general fund versus the 90, and keeping the balanced budget that the town staff had recommended to us in the beginning. So we worked hard on it. Obviously, everybody is not pleased, but we did the best we could with what we have. And I will say, if you weren't pleased with the results from this budget, please attend next year's budget meetings a little more attentively and give us some more insight on what you want, and encourage your friends to do the same. Thank you.
Yes, I'll speak on that topic as well too, just in the spirit of transparency. When we started this process, as of last board meeting, I was ready to vote on the 51-cent tax rate. I felt like that was going to be our way to finance the town. I thought it was going to be our way to finance the future. I had concerns over dipping into the fund balance, and I had concerns about whether this would be attainable long term. We had our meetings on Wednesday and Thursday. I came to the realization where I was on Wednesday night was that if the vote had gone down, it would have saved 49 cents. And I feel like at that point we would have been cutting a lot of programs out of the budget, which would have affected the citizens' quality of life, affected programs, affected economic development. And I feel like that was more of a dangerous step backwards to a degree than dipping into the fund balance. I think the proposal that came back on Thursday night was a pleasant compromise. I hope that a year from now we're sitting back thinking that was a fantastic move, and that we have these revenues coming in, and we see these new homes, these new businesses coming in, and therefore we have, I guess, calculated risk, gambled on ourselves a little bit, and then a year from now we're reaping those benefits. So thank you to the staff who worked hard. I know Commissioner Boyd did make a comment that we did kind of get it to them the last minute, and they worked hard, so I appreciate their hard work. That's all.
I just want to say, not only as a commissioner, but as a citizen, I think town staff as well as the board for working so hard to maintain our current tax rate. I think this is a positive thing for our citizens. I think it's a positive thing for our current businesses, and I think it's a positive thing for future businesses coming to town. And that's what needs to drive our tax base, is business development and new homes, not just increasing taxes. That's the easy way out. So also, I hope everyone has a happy and safe 4th of July.
Let me just say, no one hopes I'm wrong more than me. I definitely hope this budget works out, because the town of Wendell needs it. The town of Wendell needs, to move forward and to invest in itself, and calculated risk is a nice way of saying it, and I also hope it works out. The only thing I'll speak to is about I did miss 2 meetings. Since I was sworn in on this board, the regularly scheduled board meeting at the beginning of this month is the first one I have not attended. And I made it clear to everyone else sitting up here that I wasn't going to be able to make it. Is it going to be a problem? I can come back. It was a simple trip to the beach, and I said if I need to come back, I can. And no one had much consternation about it, and I let it go. I will try really hard for that not to happen again. And as to the second budget work session that we had, that one was scheduled less than 24 hours before it was basically recessed, Wednesday, and then picked back up Thursday. And I don't work a normal work schedule. I don't work an 8 to 5. By my last count, 17 times I've had to find somebody to cover for me at work or taking vacation to attend a meeting. I'm on duty tonight. I had to find somebody to cover for me for this meeting, and on 24 hours notice, there's absolutely no way I could have made that happen. Thursday nights are training meetings at the fire station, and it's not something that I can miss on 24 hours notice, nor find someone to cover my position, because if there's anyone in public service knows police, fire, EMS, just because I need to take off doesn't mean that that position doesn't need to be filled. Somebody's got to do the job. So When it comes to missing meetings, I can assure you, I do everything I can not to. If it was up to me, we'd have them on Tuesdays at 10 in the morning, on days I'm not working, because that's when it works for me. It doesn't work for anybody else though, and so I defer to that. So I think missing a meeting every now and then, really shouldn't be held against me, but like I said, you won't be seeing me missing many more. I also, sticking with the fire theme, I would also like to wish everybody a happy 4th of July, and I would like to remind you that fireworks, anything that does anything more than pop or sparkle is illegal in the state. I'm working on July 4th. If you set something on fire, me and the police chief are going to come find you. So that's all I got to say about that.
I'd like to touch back. One, thanks to the staff for this budget, and thanks to the rest of the board. I think I said a couple meetings ago, I'm probably the only one that enjoys this part of the year. And I do, I get great joy out of it. I don't do, and for someone that makes his money as a lobbyist, I will say this, and you take it for what it's worth. I don't do politics, I do policy. I feel like this budget is sound policy. If a need arises, this board has been more than willing to address that need, and it would appear now that we have $1.7 million to address that need. If we have more than $1.7 million worth of needs in one fiscal year, I think we have a lot more to address than our needs, but then we can look at a tax rate adjustment. If the tax rate adjustment had been something that the town staff could not look at us and honestly say, no, this is my revenue projection, and this is the budget that I want, and I can make it happen, I could justify a tax rate adjustment, and I will not be the one to say that never taxes ever. What I will say is that this staff and the leadership of this town put together a budget that works for the citizens, that invest in the town of Wendell at the same level, if not more, than it did last year. And I believe that whatever you call it, calculated risk, lack of self-investment, that this will work. And I'm strongly committed over the next year to making that work. On a more important note, my grandma is sitting right beside Jeff, and I was happy to have her. She's in town to babysit our two furry children for the next couple days as the state will close its budget. Johnny, midnight tonight, it's going to drop. It's going to be good. I'll give you the details. Just come see me later. And the town budget is now done. So with the state budget done and the town budget done, I'm heading to Florida.
Just real briefly, I want to just make another comment about the budget. Everybody's tired of hearing about it, but I'm real proud of the work this board has put in. This is the first one since I've been the mayor, and I'm very proud of these gentlemen. They've worked really hard, thought about it, had a lot of tough conversations, I believe we said earlier, and I'm very proud of that. I'm also very proud of the fact that I think Wendell may be the only municipality that did not adjust their tax rate in Wake County, and I think that's something to be proud of, something to celebrate. So if it turns out that we need to take a step back and do something different, every year is a new year, and you look and see what you might need for that year. But for this year, we're giving the citizens and the taxpayers here a break, and I think that's a good thing. So I appreciate the effort that was done for that. It would honestly be my hope that, I'm all the time talking about our ship coming in. When it comes in, then maybe we can even lower it. That would be my goal. I don't like having the highest one in Wake County, but at least it didn't go up more on our end. That should always be our goal. In that vein, I have discussed with the board and the manager placement on our media retreat agenda a discussion of revenue, creations of streams of revenue, how we can do better in the future. I'd like to take a look at some things like that and really look at how we conduct business, how can we maybe outsource things in different ways. I want to really think outside the box and see what we can do in that vein. One other thing, I want to remind everyone about the 4th of July celebration that's coming up next Monday. I hope that you'll come. Sign your children up to be in the parade. That sign up for that starts at 10 o'clock at the intersection of Main Street and Wendell Boulevard. And there's a lot of great things happening. The parade this year has several new things, some characters, and I don't mean silly things. I believe the Statue of Liberty or Dolly Madison and some things like that, a couple of floats. There's going to be a pipe and drum band there, which is going to be really great. They're kind of local. And then, of course, Mr. Benny Howard's going to be here and accept his dog tags that were found recently in Italy. So there's a lot of great things happening that day. I hope that you'll come. The other events are going to take place at the town square right after the parade. The parade doesn't last a long, long time. It kind of comes down, turns by the bank, and it's at the town square. So it's kind of quick, but it's short and it's charming, and it's very nostalgic, and I hope that you'll come and join us there. And that's all I have tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I don't have anything.